Okay, we're going to go ahead and get the webinar started. My name is Bill Rata. I'm the Director of Housing here at CDA. And we've had a few technical difficulties in getting all our panelists up and available. So we apologize for that, but we didn't want to keep folks waiting and wanted to get started with the webinar. So today's capacity building session, and if you've been with us, you know, we've had 5 total so far. And today is more about allowing folks to ask questions of developers who've gone through the process before. And we'll also ask them to kind of share their experiences with applying for funding with CDA and working with CDA. So it looks like we got the PowerPoint up. We're kind of doing some stuff behind the scenes, so thank you for bearing with us. So you know, today is again about building development team. And last week we talked about part of your team being a real estate agent, a title company, dispersing agent, those folks. But now we want to hear from some developers themselves. So I am going to ask Andre Alexander with the Tabernacle Community Development Corporation to tell us about his experiences working with us. And he is a first-time awardee in our last NOFA round. So Pastor Andre, if you're ready, if you want to kind of go from here, and then we may have some questions from the audience, and we'll let them pose those to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill, for having me on. Again, I apologize everybody for getting on late. Just things were moving slow. As he mentioned, my name is Andre Alexander, President of Tabernacle Community Development Corporation, and this was our first award for CDBG funding. I'll be brief. Our organization has been around a little bit over 7 years. We've done mostly rehab housing and some other community engagement initiatives up for the most part of those 7 years. So in terms of, you know, construction, things like that, we certainly are not novice. We were and are novice in the sense that we had never have never done anything ground up. And so decided to apply the tail end of the last NOFA in 2020. So if I can drop any nuggets along the way, one of them would be, if you're going to apply and engage the process, and do it and apply and engage early. Do not wait towards the end, because one, it will drive you crazy, because it is a lot of, it's not just about a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of making sure things connect and make sense. And even having a good team, it still can add a lot of pressure, which it did for us. And as a result of that, there were a couple of simple things we just simply missed. You know, we didn't check a box or something like that in the first go round. The other piece of it was, which makes, in my opinion, these seminars so good, is that there were certain things we just didn't know. I'll give you an example. On our first go round, when we applied, we did not put in a developer's fee. And the reason why we didn't is we said that we wanted to, as a first-time awardee, show our commitment to the project that we were proposing. And it was 8 single-family affordable for sale homes. And we wanted to show our commitment. We wanted to show that we were vested. So we were willing to forego that and raise that as a nonprofit separately through a campaign, if you will, because we were committed and we thought that would give us a leg up and so on and so forth. And so I did a review with Jason when we didn't get awarded, and I had several questions. And so he pointed out, given the amount of work that CDA knows it takes to handle things administratively, you absolutely should put in the, developer's fee. And he said we kind of read that as maybe you guys didn't know what you were doing. And after some conversation back and forth between him and I, he discovered it wasn't that, and he discovered what we were saying. So I say all that to say, don't, if you're new to the process, don't shortchange yourself. I know that sounds weird, especially if you are a nonprofit, because most times in the nonprofit world, we are applying, and we know competition can be fierce depending on when and what we're applying for. And so you're trying to keep things lean. In this situation, not saying that CDA just wants to, give you all the money, but what I am saying is it's okay to make sure that you are compensated for the work that you will do and have done to get things to that point. Which leads me to the next nugget in terms of speaking of how working with CDA. As I mentioned, the first time we applied was 2020. We did not get awarded. It is okay to reach out to them afterwards and get feedback. It's okay to ask questions and to learn either A, maybe something you missed, or B, it may give them something to think about that maybe they hadn't considered. So it can be a fruitful process. So don't be afraid of that dialogue. Now, fast forward briefly and quickly, because I don't want to swallow all the time, to 2021. We started earlier with the process. We already had a pretty good team in place. We added more folks. We added more folks to our team to help with different aspects. So what I mean is we took the application and broke it up in chunks and this or that. And we stayed in regular kind of team meeting updates, like bi-weekly. And then coming into the final home stretch, we probably were talking a little bit. And when I say talking, it doesn't necessarily mean by phone or even Zoom, but via email that week, just to make sure all the I's were dotted and all the T's were checked. And submitted a couple of questions along the way to the email that was given and got answers and feedback. So even though it is, I'm not going to tell you it's not a lot in terms of what you turn in and what you need to put together. It's very doable. It is not something hard to figure out. And I encourage you in between rounds to have the conversations and build the relationships with CDA and bounce off of them what you're thinking of doing. So for example, I mentioned in 2020, we applied for 8 after conversation and talking with CDA was determined best maybe to bring that down a number of houses. So we brought it down to 5. That was determined by building those relationships. And the last piece I'll say, and then I'll be quiet, is in terms of doability, by all means, I would suggest talking to another entity, developer, et cetera, that has been through the process. That was one of the things that even helped us in the first go round, because they can tell you kind of what to look out for, coupled with having those conversations with CDA in the off rounds, because I found the CDA staff to be very friendly and very helpful. We have as an organization. They'll answer any question you have and be delighted to do so. So this is not something that you need to be quiet on. If something doesn't make sense, ask it. Even if it doesn't, it's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about. So that was kind of my personal as well as our organization's overall experience, both years, both not being funded and being funded.
Thank you, Andre. I think it's important just to kind of highlight some of the things that he said about his experience, because you did apply for funding the first time, and unfortunately you weren't selected. However, we do offer an opportunity for debriefing for any applicant that doesn't receive funding. And the whole purpose of that is to sit down with you, kind of identify areas where you could strengthen your application in the next NOFA. Sometimes there's easy points in the application that are maybe left on the table, with a few tweaks here and a few tweaks there, and not like a major rewrite or a major redesign of your project, but that might be enough to get you over that threshold. And so I think it's important to take us up on that debriefing opportunity. Not everyone does, but this is an example of how you can actually get get funding by going through the debriefing, and making those changes. The other thing I'll say related to that is that this time, we've never done this before. This is new, and we've referred to it in other sessions. But we are going to offer for first-time applicants a practice application, so that you can submit an application to us and we can review that application and again give you feedback on that before the actual NOFA award itself is released. And we're hopeful this will work as in the same fashion, kind of as a debriefing, but this is just on the up front. And it'll again provide opportunities to strengthen applications if there's anywhere it could be bolstered further. Some of you may have worked with the Federal Home Loan Bank before. They offer this debriefing or kind of pre-application process as well. I know years ago it's not exactly analogous, but CDA got a home repair grant from the Federal Home Loan Bank, and we did take advantage of the pre-application, and we were able to make changes necessary to get the funding when the real applications were released. So I don't know, Pastor Andre, if you have anything else you want to say. If
We do have
not,
for Pastor Andre,
Yeah.
from a guest who wanted to know what formula you use to calculate the developer fee.
Let me unmute. Hello, Lisa. Great question. So you'll find in the application process, a bunch of fields and different things are calculated for you. What we try to do, I can't really say there was an exact formula or science. What we try to look at is knowing, if you will, the amount of estimated time that we felt it would take to manage the entire process, meaning not just the actual construction, but the administrative time, and as well as coverage of pre-development costs. Because the other side of this is, as you're going through the process, you're gonna have to get surveying done, you're gonna have architect involved. I mean, these other pieces, and those all have a cost that you will more than likely expend before you are technically receiving any funds in the bank from being awarded. So you kind of want you want to include in that developer's fee all of those kinds of soft cost things, as well as what I call time and management in managing the project. So I wish I could tell you we use some, I'm an engineer by trade, so I wish I could tell you we use some exact formula, but I think that's going to vary by organization, what that model is based off your own internal overhead, infrastructure, and processes, and who you're using to do some of the soft development pieces, what that developer's fee is per your organization.
Great. Thanks, Andre, for answering that question. All right, I think, unless there are any other questions for Andre, I believe we have Jeff Mugg from the St. Louis Design Alliance, who is on, and we'd asked him to talk about his experience. Jeff has done a lot of work with us in the past, anything from a single family house all the way up to an entire apartment complex for senior housing, the Weston Apartments that he's done. So if we can get Jeff on next, we'll start there.
I think I'm on. Bill, are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, I hear you, Jeff. Great,
Bill,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Lisa, thank you to you for inviting me to share some of our experience. I'm Jeff Mugg. I wear a couple hats. St. Louis Design Alliance is our architectural firm that's been around for actually many decades now in St. Louis. And that's not germane so much to this particular conversation because I really want to talk more about our development work. And I'm going to use a different name than what's on the screen. You're seeing West End Apartments, but Delmar Properties is our parent company that is really behind all of our development work. We started doing real estate development in 1995. Our very first partnership with CDA was in 2003. And we have done enough projects partnering with CDA at this point that frankly, I've lost count and I didn't go look through our list to count them up. But Bill is absolutely right in that we have done a lot of single family and two family rehab and new build for sale projects. And within those projects, we have both done income restricted sales to end buyers, and we've done some that have had no restriction. And then we have also participated and appreciate CDA's partnership on rental production. So we've kind of seen kind of all of the aspects of what's available in the help that CDA can provide through the CDBG funds. A couple of things I thought about, just particularly talking to folks that maybe have not submitted an application before. Three things came to mind, and certainly they're going to echo a little bit of what Andre shared. But one is this property identification, which is one of the more difficult aspects of a project. And I would just tell you, work on that identification early. When the NOFA is out and it's time to get serious about an application, that's not the time to be working on identifying properties. Really, now's the time to be working that aspect of it. The other piece is identification of your team. And the team involves a GC. It involves your professional service folks, architects, engineers, surveyors. And then a lender. And there again, the time to be having the conversations with those partners is not when you're in the throes of trying to put an application together. You want to have those folks lined up early and on board with you, and even working on things prior to the actual NOFA coming out. The third thing I'd share is the thought of if this is the first time through the process, and again, I've never found it terribly complicated, but it is certainly nuanced. And I think some of the things that Bill just shared with what they're doing with the draft application, the opportunity to come in and talk about an application post review sort of gives some indication that there are nuances to this. And learning what those are and being able to react and tweak applications accordingly is pretty important. If you've not been through it, and I'm sorry, I'm going a long way around to get to the point, but if you've not been through it before, adding someone to your team as a consultant is just a good idea. And if you use that developer fee that we were just talking about, use part of that developer fee to actually to be able to take care of the cost of a consultant, think about it. It'd be well worth the time. We've seen that employed before with some success, and just a thought there. Let me just last thing, since the developer fee question was asked, and I thought Andre did a good job of answering, but maybe I can add a couple things to it as well, because there are a lot of twists and turns to a developer fee. And honestly, the determination of what that fee is not a science, it's an art. It's not just X percentage of the total development cost and there's your developer fee. It's a little more complex than that. And developer fees are real, they're earned. For us as a real estate development company, there's a need for a development fee because that's what pays salaries and puts shoes on the kids. So it's not just a fee that's put into an application as gravy, so to speak. It's real, and they need to be earned and paid. But the amount can fall into a broad range, and a lot of it depends on your own model of your company, your real estate development company, and what, as Andre said, what funds are needed in order to provide just the funding that's needed to make a business work. The other thing that's a little bit nuanced, I guess, I'm overusing that word, I suppose, but is the relationship with the developer fee with your lender. Lenders do tend to look at developer fees a little bit differently. And there may be a difference in thought as to when that developer fee is earned. And that is a conversation to have with your lender. A lot of times the lenders want those held into the end, and we have to have the conversation with them that no, these are earned prior to the project actually starting, and they're earned throughout the project, and they need to be funded and paid. So just tuck that one away as well as you're thinking through that. So Bill, I like Andre, I'm here. I'd be glad to answer any questions. We certainly have had wonderful experiences with CDA, and love the relationship. A lot of good has been done for us, mostly in the South City area, and now in the West End neighborhood as well. And just glad for what you all do. And appreciate the applicants on the phone here too, and wish them success as they work through the same process we have over the years.
We do have a question for you, Jeff, that came in. They wanted to know whether or not you would recommend a new build or a rehab for our first project.
Interesting. I left off just one of the major components of our modus operandi, and that is that we have historically used state and federal historic tax credits for our projects. Every rehab we have done to date with CDA has utilized the state credits. Some of the projects have also used federal credits. And I'm getting to the answer to the question, just to kind of say that for us, making the deal pencil out has been easier with the use of the state credits. And if anybody on the call today has been keeping up with the process itself with applying for and using the credits, while it is still a great program, and I would highly recommend it to anybody, it is, it's got its quirks and kinks, and we have active projects right now that are under construction that are using the credits. We have applications in right now for a final review. So even with all of the press and whatnot that's been out there, we're still making use of those credits and making deals work. Because of that, it's really that aspect of being able to, on a single family house, add anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 of equity into your capital stack via the federal credits. It really makes the deal work better. I know that Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe CDA is not necessarily requiring that anymore. But still very much a piece that we are proponents of. New construction works. It's harder these days, again, just to make it pencil out. The market is really hot right now. We're talking about projects that would be responding to a NOFA that would not be built and come online for another year plus. Because of the length of the process and construction. So you never know what the market's going to be at the back end of a project like that. But the fact that the market's hot and prices are higher certainly is helping for the sale of both new construction and rehab. The only thing that is just a personal comment. We love doing rehab. It is so much fun to bring these historic St. Louis buildings back to life. And we have a team that has been working with us to to fulfill all the necessary requirements plus of what it takes to bring these back in a true historic form. And it is gratifying and a lot of fun to stabilize these neighborhoods using that approach. Sorry, long answer to a fairly simple question.
No worries. Thank you for that. We got another question that came in and asking about, I guess, some additional information about if you could run through a quick process of how one would apply for the tax credits.
So the website is pretty good. There's a SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office. We all refer to it as the SHPO office. And then the Department of Economic Development office at the state. So those are two state offices. One that's in a state agency, kind of all by itself, Department of Economic Development, and then another one that falls under the Park Service. Both of them have websites. I've got them as quick links on my Chrome. So I'm sorry I can't give you but a quick Google search, you would find them. The DED site is pretty good. You'll find a page that has all of the necessary forms and gives a pretty good outline of how to apply. I will say this, just as I did a moment ago with regard to responding to a NOFA application. The best thing you can do, it's almost a necessary evil with the credits, is to hire a consultant. There are tax credit consultants. Obviously, it's something that we do. We do our own tax credit consulting since we've done it. Gosh, I don't know how many times, between somewhere around 60 or 70 applications that we've run through the state at this point. But you get a consultant to help you. They will walk you through the process. Again, it's not terribly complicated, but you have to document the building with photographs. You have to have a solid set of architectural drawings. The application itself is pretty straightforward, but it's good to have someone put that together for you. That's the part one. There is some, I'll call it archaeological aspects of the application that are sort of they're architectural and archaeological in nature. Describing a building, its history, and how it works for the program. So that all goes in, then you get approved, you do your project, you work with your architect and your consultant to be sure that you're not doing anything in terms of construction that would be detrimental to your application. And then when it's finished, you put in your part two. An accountant does a review of all of your cost expenses. They cost certify your report that goes into DED. Your final application goes into SHPO for review. The SHPO signs off on the architectural piece. DED signs off on the tax credits. And then the beauty of the state tax credits is they are what is referred to as transferable, meaning I could transfer my credits to Bill and Bill could pay me for those credits. Now, he probably wouldn't do that, but there are several groups here in St. Louis that will, and actually many. It's a very, very easy thing to do. And they will generally pay about 90 cents on the dollar. So if you generate if you end up with a tax credit certificate of $100,000, they will actually write you a check for $90,000. And then at the beginning of the project, we work with our lenders and they actually bridge those tax credits. Those tax credits themselves are collateral, and the bank will collateralize their bridge loan against those credits. Then we deliver the credits. They're paid. The bridge loan is paid off, and everybody's happy. And we have a new homeowner in a historically renovated house that's all excited to be in a neighborhood, and we further stabilize a block.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that detailed answered. I think exactly that's what the person who posed the question was looking for. So appreciate that. Unless there are any other questions for Jeff, and I don't see any in the Q&A, we are going to turn it over to Yafet El-Amin with Efficacy Consulting. Like Jeff, Yafet has done projects that range from single-family rehab to rental housing and new construction of such housing. So if Yafet, if you're ready, we'd love to hear from you.
Great. Can you hear me, Bill?
Yeah, I can. Thank you. And I
Thank
can
you.
see you. So,
All right.
good.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I was in on the wrong side. So I was actually seeing everybody else, but no one was seeing me. But thanks to modern technology, we were able to get it right. And I am here. So on behalf of Efficacy Consulting and Development, I'd like to thank CDA for giving me an opportunity to come and interface with other potential developers and talk a little bit about the process and in essence, how I got here or how this is possible today. Do I have an ability to take the screen?
I don't know. Lisa, do you know, or
If not,
Andy?
it's okay. I can just talk through it. I did have a couple of slides that I wanted.
Let me relinquish control of the screen. You can have it. There you
Perfect.
go.
All right.
And now that
Very
you're, you can do it. Yay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I'm gonna move this over so I can do it on a slideshow. There we go. All right, so again, I'm Yafet El-Amin. I'm the president of Efficacy Consulting and Development. I am a resident of the city of St. Louis, born and raised, grew up in the 27th Ward off of Riverview and West Florissant on a small street called Park Lane. I'm the president of Efficacy Consulting and Development, but I also serve as the executive director of MOCAN Construction and Contractors Assistance Center, which I would say is where I've kind of leaned into development from the construction side. Even though I was not a contractor, we primarily work with minority contractors and female contractors. And we worked with the city of St. Louis for several years in helping to implement the city's MBE and WBE goals. Prior to working with MOCAN, I did serve in the Missouri legislature for 4 years as a state representative for the 57th district, in essence, working with residents and the state legislature to make laws better for our citizens. I had a unique opportunity in 2011 to work with a state agency called Missouri Housing and Development Commission. That agency primarily oversees the affordable housing for the state of Missouri. And in 2011, MHDC created what's called a emerging business initiative program that was designed to increase the number of minority developers and minority businesses in the state of Missouri. So to date, in working with MHDC, I've been fortunate enough to build over 120 housing units in the state of Missouri, and we are currently working in Illinois and Oklahoma. And I do like to say that I am also a mom. So before all of this, I was a mother. I have a son, Hassan, who's 20, and a daughter, Rakaya, who is 16. Here, a little bit about efficacy. Efficacy basically means the ability to produce a desired result. Our goal is to find holistic ways of working with urban communities in areas that, in essence, really need a shot in the arm relative to development. And we're happy to be able to work in the city of St. Louis, one, primarily because it is where I was born, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to work in communities that I've actually lived in. Here are a couple of pictures of a few projects that we worked on. So the first to the left is the Village of Delmar Place, which is a low-income housing tax credit development, roughly around $8 million. It is actually behind the old regional hospital called the Delmar Divine now. It sits on Belt and Clemens, which is actually about less than a half a mile away from my house. What was important about this development, and this was my first opportunity in working with CDA, even though Missouri Housing Development Commission primarily funded the tax credits for the development. This development was also funded in part by CDA as well as Affordable Housing Commission. And then we also were able to get, at that time, aldermen had their own allocation of funds, and Alderman Frank Williamson was the alderman at that time. And he was also able to put in some funds for this development. So close to $2 million of this project was actually funded with city dollars. And it was a 40-unit garden home, or is garden home and townhome development. So as I'll talk a little bit about CDA and the application process, I'd say for me, I started initially with a 40 unit development. So most developers will probably start with maybe 1, 2, sometimes up to 8. I actually started with 40. So that application process was much more intense than CDA's process. On the lower part of the screen, you see Finney Place development, which is another low-income housing tax credit development that was roughly $9 million. And we actually had some cost overruns, and I'll talk a little bit about how CDA was able to come in and assist the development there. This project is about 2 blocks east of Rankin Technical College. So it sits on Finney, CD Banks, and Cook Avenue. It also, as well as Village of Delmar Place, was built on areas that were basically blighted and vacant land. So as you start going through the city and seeing a lot of land that is underdeveloped, that used to have houses several, decades ago, and now they don't, I would like to say for the potential developers who are on the call to think about and dream about what can go there, because both of these areas were blocks of vacant land that was sitting in North St. Louis. And then the other one at the top is a partnership with Believers Temple Word Fellowship, Bishop Calvin Scott, which is actually in North County, right off of Paul's Ferry and Chambers. And it is a senior development, a 42-unit senior development with community space on the lower level, as well as 2 commercial bays on the lower level. So we've been fortunate enough to not only work with St. Louis City, but also to work with St. Louis County. Also wanted to highlight a project that we are currently working on in East St. Louis. So it's called the New Broadview, and what you're looking at now is the former Broadview Hotel, which was the first hotel in downtown East St. Louis. Make a note that we've actually started that project in August 22nd, 2017 was the first meeting I went to about that project. We've been working on it for 4 years and are just now slated to go before IDA's commission to close this project and start construction in January of 2022. So I want to say that also for the developers on the on the call, sometimes developments take much longer than you think that they would. Some of it is just the process and it moving slow. Of course, we're in COVID now, so a lot of things have happened to slow down projects. Sometimes projects end up costing more than you thought that they would. I'm gonna go back to the lower screen, the Finney Place development. This project was actually built on land that had homes that were demolished. However, we had serious problems in the ground. Actually, the earth, when we were trying to build foundations, was caving in under us. And many of us, if you live in the city, know that sometimes properties don't get demolished properly. And as a result of that, you end up with land that is not tight and compact. So we actually ended up close to $400,000 over budget because of the excavation issues and the issues that we had in the ground. Why is this important, and how did CDA help? I actually was at a meeting with Jason, and we were talking about another project that I was working on. And I said, hey, Jason, we are really having problems with Finney Place. And of course, CDA not only helps to fund you throughout the construction process, they come to the meetings, they engage you. And so he said, well, hey, Yafa, what's going on? I said, well, we bought this land from the city, and we're having all of these problems. We're finding foundations in the ground, big boulders in the ground, and we're significantly over budget. Why is that important for a developer? Because if you're over budget as a developer, you don't get paid. Right? So anything over budget comes out of your developer fee. And so at that time, literally, even though we built 40 beautiful homes in the community, I've been working on it since 2016. I could have come out of that project literally without anything. And I think Jeff said it earlier, being able to put shoes on the kids' feet. But Jason talked about a supplemental application process that they have, that you can come in and you could let them know what's happening, why the project is going over, and ask CDA for some additional assistance to help. And we did that. Of course, they didn't provide the full gap that we needed, but a significant amount that really helped our project and helped me as a developer. So, for me, I think engaging CDA from the beginning to the end is beneficial. Ending with a new broad view. This is just some of the things that we will build there. And then, at the end, I basically say dreaming, connecting, doing, and working together is really what's going to transform our communities. For anybody that's new on the line, the key for me was to bring in team members who knew how to do it. And Jeff talked a little bit about that earlier. So that meant getting architects who had a track record with MHDC, of course, and also CDA. That meant a lot because as a new developer, you are really going to depend on the knowledge and excellence of your team. So that was important, getting a contractor who understands CDA's process, who may have a track record with CDA, an architectural firm that has a track record with CDA, even your title company and disbursement company. Who are you working with to have your money come through? Do they have a relationship with CDA? Do they know them? Does CDA feel comfortable with them? I think all of those are ways to help make your project smoother, help to make developing for the developer smoother and more easier. And the last thing that I would say that I learned on a small project that I'm still doing now, a two building rehab, is to engage CDA at the beginning. I see Irv is on the line. I didn't know when I looked at CDA's initial application that you can actually call upon them and they can go walk through those homes with you. If somebody asked a question about rehab earlier, they can walk through those homes with you before you decide to choose to build that home. You can ask them questions. You can talk about those things, of course, prior to your application, but those walkthroughs and engaging them can really make a difference at the end, because, some of the homes that the city may have on the list to redevelop visually may look one way, but when you get inside, and what I've been dealing with on one of my projects is structural issues, things that I did not know as a non-contractor were issues. And to be honest, some of those things were not included in our budget when we decided to rehab those developments. So working with CDA from the beginning, talking to them, and then of course, there's a process that they're implementing this year that's helping you walk through an application. I don't know any other agency that is doing something like that. So those are priceless nuggets that we get in order to, to help us to be successful. So I'll stop there and take any questions. Thanks again for giving me an opportunity to speak. I think without CDA, many of the projects that you saw on the screen, we would not have been able to do because CDA came in and contributed significant funding. And the larger agency, the state agency, also likes to look at having a local commitment. So having that local commitment from CDA gave us a bump or a boost, if you will, for the state agency funding opportunity.
Great, thanks, Yaphet, and congratulations on getting that project in East St. Louis done. I just saw the names of the agencies and the funding sources involved, and that's very complex. So,
Yes.
congratulations. I can see why it took a long time. We do have a question, and the question is: are there any platforms you would suggest minorities to connect with that support minority developers?
Ask me that question one more time. Are there
Sure.
platforms?
Yeah, are there any platforms you would suggest minorities to connect with that support minority developers?
Each other. Each other, and not just other minority developers. Seek out non-minority developers. When I first started, of course, the first thing I thought was, were there other, African-American female developers in the space? The only one that I'd heard of who was actually deceased when I went to seek her was Sharon Robnett. And she was an African-American female developer that redeveloped the Homer G. Phillips Hospital, which is now a senior living facility. So there were none that I knew of. Of course, I think Mary One did some development as well as real estate. So I kind of sought her out and then reached out to a couple of other local developers that I was able to connect with. But I would also say, don't necessarily limit yourself to having to reach out to somebody, within your own race or gender. I did try to go there first, but to be quite honest, there is a small minority population in this space. I don't know I think there are some other African-American female developers that may be working with nonprofit organizations. So I don't know if you're going to find yourself there. However, I believe you will find other people in the industry that want to work with you. Architects want to make money, contractors want to make money. So, reaching out to other people. And I think even asking, and Bill, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you could ask CDA, what developers. Oh, and I know something else I did. I went and looked at the past CDA applications. They keep them online. So you can go back to the past awarded applications and see who was awarded and what they were awarded and what they were awarded for. And from there, you can call them, and ask them, and they might become your consultants. I was fortunate enough the last round to consult with another minority developer who was doing a CDA application. And because he knew I did CDA applications before, he came to me and asked me to consult with him.
Great, thank you. Yeah, great advice. Thank you. Appreciate it. I don't see any more questions. Do any of our panelists have anything they would like to say that maybe somebody said something that may have, oh, I wish I would have said that, or, let me add this to the conversation. I'll open it up for that. Okay.
Jeff, if I could say one more thing that I think is important for anybody that's doing development, reach out early to your local alderman or alderperson. Have those conversations with them, ask them if they are planning to do anything in that area. Reach out to the neighborhood organizations, because the last thing you want to do as a developer is get far along with the process and you don't have the local political support, or you might have opposition. And then a lot of the work that you put forward, may be challenging, or you might have a concept and the neighborhood organization had a different concept. And earlier on, you guys could have merged the concepts together and it would have been a lot easier versus now you're battling a neighborhood organization who, doesn't want this there, and you've spent time and money to build these types of things or for the concepts there. So start early. Don't be afraid to engage the politics. It's necessary and many times good. So engage often and early.
Just to reiterate what Yaphet just said, that has literally happened in the last 3 years. We had a developer who had a wonderful proposal that we approved, and the neighborhood did not want them there, and that project died. So be sure that you have the support of the neighborhood. We're going to be making sure that we send out to everybody a set of links to the entire series again, and to the links for it, so you can watch the things again, so that you can pick up the handouts. On the screen right now, I have a little thing about the practice application. There's a link there. You can actually search CDA Spring 2021 NOFA, and you will find the stuff that Yaphet was talking about, the previous applicants, the previous successful applicants, the previous applications. For the practice application, we're going to be using the application from the Spring 2021 NOFA because we haven't created the one for next year's NOFA yet. Next year's NOFA will be in the first quarter of 2022, we think. That's a guess, that's not a promise. But if you have never done this before, really take advantage of doing that application with us so that we can help you, so we can guide you. Yaphet's nodding. It really does throw a lot of people, and Andre talked to the importance of that before. Let's see here. I had asked our participants to come with questions if they had them. Yeah.
I did have one question. Any knowledge or any information about how much the city will be putting out through CDA this year for applications, since a lot of the CARES funds are there? Nope.
You know,
nope.
at this point, I think there will be some opportunities, not necessarily with CARES funds, but maybe with the American Rescue Plan Act funding. That I think still those details are being worked out. But we can share that information on our website once that is, finally determined.
Another note that I would make, following up on Yaphet's note of thinking about the sites that you're building on, you should assume that any building site you're working on in the city had a building on it previously, and that building is still under the ground. Okay, just assume it. It's probably true. We do allow supplementary applications. They are really hard to get any supplementary money out of. The round that Yaphet applied for supplementary money in, there were 3 other applications for supplementary money. She was the only one who got one, and she didn't get everything she asked for.
Yes.
So we really discourage that. We want you to give us an accurate price estimate from the get-go. That's what we're after. We do have a question here from Sheila Johnson. Oh, what resources are available to help a company become a development company? Analyst, what do you know?
Ooh. Outside of taking out your own loan, I'm just going to say, for me, it was my own sweat and equity. So, believing in the project, believing in myself, working it as much as I could, with my own resources. And one thing I will say, a lot of people will work on an if come. So, if you get another hungry architect that wants an opportunity, they might help you get your drawings and renderings up. And if the application gets funded, then you pay them. But honestly, for me, much of my initial preliminary resources, site control, and that came out of my own funds, and depending on myself. Now, there might be some business loans you can take. Oh, I will say currently now, and you all from CDA might remember the minority business loan that SLDC used to oversee with Stiefel. Rise currently is the administrator of that program, and it was for previously only for minority and minority contractors, because it was a minority contractor loan program. It's my understanding they have now extended those funds for minority contractors and developers. I don't know how extensive the resources are, but I believe Colleen Hafner with Rise, and then Rise has a new president, Terrell Island there, that maybe she can reach out to Rise to talk about their loan program, a line of credit program to also help minority developers.
My thoughts.
I could toss this out. There's an organization out there called CCIM. It stands for Commercial Real Estate. Oh gosh, I'm not sure what CCIM stands for, but it's Commercial Real Estate Education. They are an organization that provides both online and in-person training, and they are top flight. They teach how to put a pro forma together, how to, well, really all aspects. And I would just probably come back to the most important aspect of any of this is how to put a pro forma together, both hard cost, soft cost projections, whether it is a single family for sale project, or whether it's a multifamily project. I used and encountered some CCIM training kind of early on in my development doings, and found it to be very helpful. But that's a pretty good resource.
I would say as well, I had a chance last year to be a part of the READY program. It's Real Estate Developers Diversity Initiative under Urban Land Institute, ULI, and they're kind of a national global organization. For me, a lot of it was helpful. Some of it was redundant because some of the projects and things we had already done as an organization. But if you're starting out, I would recommend it, because what it can do is it gets you a discounted membership to the global organization, which then has all kind of online classes, everything from not only pro forma building, but to how to use Excel to create the pro forma itself, and walk you through the steps and the tools of Excel. They have classes that will talk about who should be on your development team. They have classes that talk about construction costs, what construction management is. I mean, you name it under the field of development, it's there. And the classes, once you buy one, it stays up for 90 days, and you can go back and replay it and use the worksheets and stuff like that ongoing. So I would use that as a tool. Someone mentioned the Rise and Colleen. They have expanded it. The challenge will be, though, where you are as for instance, if you're not incorporated as a company, it wouldn't be beneficial to talk to Colleen yet. Those are some steps you'll have to take to get off the ground. And, the easiest thing is, as Yafet mentioned, I would find the smallest project that your own pockets can afford. I know that sounds probably not professional or very crisp, but being honest, I would find the smallest thing that you can afford and cut your teeth on that, and use some of these other programs to learn, and then take from this. I hope you've been writing down the contacts. As Jeff mentioned, the other hat that they're part of an architectural firm. We utilize St. Louis Design Alliance. Our organization does. We're working on some stuff with them right now. But the point I'm making is you can leverage people who have done it a long time and come alongside of them and, work as well. So those are kind of some of the ways to skin the cat. But I don't know a way of getting into this without it costing you something on your own, to be honest, especially if you are a minority.
And that's anything in life, right? If you want to get a higher education, typically you're investing something in yourself. You're taking out student loans, but that's your own investment back within yourself so that you can get, at a higher level to be exposed to other opportunities, more dollars. I do want to mention one other organization. It's called NDC. I think it's called that's for National Development Council. And even though I started off with 40 units, I did not know much about development. So I was kind of here at the top and not knowing much at the bottom. And so I met a friend who worked for NDC, or a person who worked for NDC, and he told me about those classes that they offer. And those classes, at the time, I flew to Denver to take like a 5-day class on a development certification. They had a real estate developer certification and affordable housing developer certification. But now I think they're doing a lot of those classes online. So that might be an opportunity for her to go through those programs, but they also help with performers, partnerships, how to structure a deal, and you take tests afterwards in order to get your, you get a certification at the end of the course.
Great, thank you, everybody. Those are great answers. Appreciate you taking the time to answer that question there. It looks like we have one additional question. Lisa, it looks like you might have been starting to type an answer.
Yeah, I was
demo.
trying to decide what to do with that. So the question is, how does QC work for LRA demo projects? And I'm not really sure exactly where the questioner is going with that, but I will say that when you're working with us, demolishing a building, particularly a building that is in an actual historic area or an area that could be a historic area, it's a huge problem. It's hard for us to fund demolition. Just frankly, it's very hard for us to fund demolition. If you recall back to the session about Section 106, and that federal funds cannot be used to make an area ineligible. What that means is that if it's the last building standing on the block, unless it was like the birthplace of George Washington, well, maybe not, he's a famous person from St. Louis. I don't know. Anyway, so unless it was the birthplace of Pierre Laclede, well, that's not gonna work anyway. Anyway, if it's the only building standing on the block, yeah, you can probably tear it down. But if it's on an intact block, we can't really fund tearing it down, and tearing it down being part of the project is really an issue that makes it complicated for us to work with. So that's.
Now, is that in non-historic areas, Lisa? Because
yeah, well, it just depends, right? Okay, because if an area has intact fabric, if it could be a historic district, because like for right now, for example, we have some beautiful intact neighborhoods on the north side that, their companion neighborhood on the south side, the one that was built at the same time, is a historic district, but the neighborhood on the north side isn't. So we can't use federal funds to make it so that that neighborhood on the north side is permanently ineligible. Because as Jeff mentioned, there are financial benefits that come with being a historic district. Because so it's a tricky thing for us to utilize to do demo as part of a funded project. And it makes the budgets really, really tricky, which is where that tax credit issue that Jeff was speaking to really comes in useful. Adding that 50 grand to the bottom line to help repair a building that in normal cases would be seen as beyond saving makes all the difference in the world. And Jeff has worked on some difficult ones. So
could I also state that, because I'm remembering in the middle of Finney Place, we had an old vacant derelict building that was in the middle of the street that I ended up asking the alderman about it going on the emergency demo list. So actually the city took it down, and then we came back and purchased the land from the city, and then we built a new house on it. So it was not necessarily a part of our development budget to tear it down. However, you know, you have 40 new homes we were building. So the alderman saw fit to, hey, I can work out of our demo money to take this building down. So it wasn't CDA's money, it wasn't federal money, but it did come down by the city demolition department.
Yeah, and that has some questionable aspects to it too. It had to happen in that particular case. It legitimately needed to be demolished, but it's just a very tricky situation.
Yeah.
All around. So.
Gotcha.
Any other questions?
I don't see any.
Do y'all have any other nuggets of wisdom out there for our young our new developers? Jeff, you've been quiet.
You know, there's something I couldn't get unmuted. I couldn't unmute myself fast enough a moment ago. When Yafe was talking, there's a lot of things she shared that struck a chord because they're absolutely, you know, our same kind of experiences. And Andre just said this, but I'm just going to say it again because I think it's important that anybody that's coming into this as a first time should not feel like they need to do multiple units. CDA is looking for good developers, good partners, and our first deal was one single family house down on Illinois in South City, and it was it. It was our first deal, and then it grew from there. You know, to the point that our most recent project was a $9 million total development cost here in the West End neighborhood. And I will say from our experiences with that first house and on through the years, that has allowed us to morph into several other kinds of different types of development, primarily along Delmar here. And everybody, I think, has an understanding of kind of what that means and the implications there, and both on the south and north side of Delmar in the 5800, 5900 blocks there, including just recently renovating a building and putting our office here on Delmar. But CDA has been a part of that in my mind because it was through our partnership with them that kind of got us started, and then it grew and developed and has continued over the years, but small to eventually doing some larger things. So you know, I like the way Andre said it too. You know, don't bite off more than you can chew. It's what's nice about a smaller project is the money's less, the risk is less, but a great way to get in and get started.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any final words?
I'll just add, Bill, that I've had an opportunity to work in 3 different states with different agencies. And whenever you have an agency that says, we're going to let you walk through an application and we're going to, you know, help you, show you what's wrong and what's right about the application. And I've been doing this since 2011. I've never seen that. Take advantage of that. What do you have to lose? Right? It's almost like the teacher saying, we're going to give you the practice test before you take the test. And they're going to use the same test as the real test, as the practice test. So don't be afraid. Try it. I agree with Jeff. Try small. And if we don't rebuild our communities, who will? So it's up to us to kind of stand in the space and say, I'm going to try to work with the city and work, you know, with the government to try to rebuild. And it's nothing better than the feeling when you can stand there and look at a structure that has a family in it now that you know that was because of you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, but I think handing the keys over on the closing day, that's like the most exciting part, and getting to see the family, especially if it's their first home. Or it's a new apartment. It's the same feeling. So, okay, I think I don't see any other questions. I'd like to thank all our panelists, Yafet El-Amin, Jeff Mugg, and Andre Alexander. We appreciate your time, your insight, your honesty, and your willingness to help other developers and help us. And we thank you for your interest in making the city a better place to live and work and play in. Like I think Yafa put it very well, we're all in this together. It takes, all of us to help improve the neighborhoods. And it's just going to make St. Louis stronger. So we'll send out additional information on the practice applications once we have those available. And again, I thank you all the attendees and the participants, especially if you've been with us for all 6 sessions now. We hope you learned a lot, and our contact information is up here on the screen, so feel free to reach out to any of us. All right. Thank you much.